Hello and welcome back to CyBytes, the podcast that brings conversations with those working in cybersecurity here in UAE. My name is Nick, I am a trainer, and today we have Chris, a humble yet driven and ambitious L2 analyst. I met him not long ago, and when I talked to him, he had such an interesting story to tell. We talk about why he chose to leave game development as a career path and actually pursue cybersecurity and what it entailed. We get into the real nitty-gritty details about working as an L2 here in UAE. We also talk about how to cultivate curiosity inside and outside of cybersecurity, how it's not just baked into us, we can actually develop it. And finally, we talk about why beefing up your LinkedIn can make navigating this crazy industry in Dubai a little bit easier. Enjoy. Hello, Chris. How you doing? Welcome to
Nick.
the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Like we were just talking for 20 minutes.
Not at all.
Yeah, man. I'm excited to have you on.
Glad to be here, man.
You were one of the trainees that I got to teach. I got to train a little bit, and you did show a lot of expertise, and you support a lot of the team, which I really liked. Which is why I wanted to get you on.
Yeah.
And yeah, man, like we've spoken about before, you have a very unique journey. You're relatively new to the space, but not so much. You're kind of like, I would call it a little bit midway. You can correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, no,
but
absolutely.
I think it's key for a lot of people to even just learn about your story and how you got involved, right? Again, this is what this podcast is about, to not just talking about why and what you do in cyber, but how you got into cyber,
it.
like actual, your interests and what you do outside of it as well.
Absolutely.
And the guidance that you can provide for people, new joiners or people who are new grads or struggling to move out of IT or moving.
I've got some opinions. That's for sure. Yeah.
Cool. So let's jump straight into it. Give us your Chris Prince. Give us a background on who you are and what you do.
My name is Chris Prince. I've been in the cybersecurity industry for about 8 years or so, and it's been a good journey thus far. I've gotten to deal with a lot of interesting things that in an area that interest me. And I'm excited to talk more about my experiences and what I've dealt with in the past few years. So hit me with some good questions, Nick. Let's get started.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
So like you said, you've had a lot of experience in cyber. You do a lot of really interesting stuff with the company that you work for. It's not often that it's a job. Right? For a lot of people, cyber is quite the passion, and that is a very common piece of advice that you get.
Right.
So, why cyber first? Why did you decide to move into cybersecurity? Why not something into like CompSci or something completely different, accounting or whatever?
I actually started out with CompSci, and I was initially hell-bent on becoming a full-time programmer and ideally a game development programmer, and that was where my interest in IT and computer science as a whole really took shape. Fortunately, during the course of my education, I got introduced to the concept of cybersecurity, and it fascinated me. It was very cool, and I could see my interest and curiosity kind of shift towards this whole area that I've never heard of, And so the more I learned about cybersecurity and the different aspects of it, the more I could see myself like falling in love with what I was doing, what I was learning, what I was seeing, and it all seemed very interesting. But it was very different from the traditional computer science programming kind of pathway that I had initially hoped to take. And then the more I looked into the career and my future prospects with cybersecurity, the more convinced I was that this was a career that I could bet my time and efforts on. I think that the year was around 2014, so about like 11 years ago. I was like 1 year into college, and I completely shifted into a cybersecurity program because I truly believed it would be a solid, stable career. it wasn't only the passion, it wasn't only the curiosity, it was also a little bit of um, a risk, a gamble in terms of this is the career I want to take, and I don't know if my mind would change halfway through or maybe in a decade or so. But we will cross that bridge when we get to it. That was the idea.
Nice.
Um, yeah, and honestly, thus far, looking back on it, it's been a rewarding and a very fulfilling career thus far. Yep.
Nice. That's quite interesting, actually, how you moved from gaming into cyber.
Yeah,
I
I'm a
personally.
huge gamer, dude.
Nice.
I love my games.
Hell yeah.
Grew up with them.
I'm gonna
Yeah,
pick your brain about that a little
for
bit
sure,
later
for
as
sure.
well.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. You bring up a good point as well, and I think we spoke about this before. Is that even for myself, I made the same sort of transition. Right. I initially wanted to become a sound engineer. I remember when
Right.
I was going to university, and then it was my parents who said, actually, well, there's no prospects in that. As per usual, they're like, oh, you
Mhm.
don't make money, be a doctor,
Typical,
whatever.
typical,
Typical like
typical
Indian parents.
Indian parents. Yeah.
But there was truth in that. So
Mhm.
I thought, you know what,
Absolutely.
let's take a look at this. I don't
Mhm.
want to do computers or anything like that. I
Mhm.
was supposedly good at it, but then I learned about cyber. I knew that was a thing, but I didn't know anything about it.
Right.
And so I read it and I thought, like you said, it's cool. Cyber looked cool. Like
It looked cool.
even the word
Yeah,
itself felt
yeah,
like
yeah.
whoa.
Absolutely.
And I think a lot of people kind of forget that as well. Is that this is, I guess for me that was the reason why I stay,
Mhm.
and for a lot of others it is as well. But again, I find it's tough to find these kind of people who still think it's
Think
cool.
cool. Yeah,
You know
no,
what I mean?
absolutely. Yeah, my experience thus far is very very few people truly look at cybersecurity from a lens of interest. A lot of them at this point, the people around me, they look at it like a job. Yeah, yeah, and the truth of the matter is, it is a job too. There is a very solid, truthful aspect to that. Um, but I believe it's the curiosity and the interest that really drives us in this career, in this field. Largely because I believe IT and cybersecurity, being a subset of that, is a unique field in which there's continuous growth and learning. Things are changing every 2 3 5 years or so, in those steps and iterations. It's very different from accounting, let's say, where you have solid principles, solid concepts, and those concepts are the building blocks that are never going to change, and people just develop their experience on top of that. In IT and cybersecurity, you could be a master of one tool set, and 3 years down the line, there's a completely different tool that's going to do everything that you perfected in a totally different way, and then you start from scratch. So personally, I think a very important characteristic to find success in this IT and cybersecurity industry is to be able to start from scratch, to become a beginner as often as possible, because that's essentially what we would be doing on a regular basis.
Yeah, that's a good positive turn on imposter syndrome.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yo,
When you're starting from scratch, you really have to feel humbled by it, and because there will be multiple times where you feel humbled by someone else, whether it's an
absolutely.
ego thing or whether it's something that you just don't know about, or it's a new
Yeah,
tool set, right?
yeah,
If
yeah.
I'm going in as a SOC L1,
Mhm.
right, and I have my handful of experience, I have
Yeah,
my CYSA plus, I have my
right,
SEC plus, I've got,
right.
heck, I even got EJPT.
Yeah, yeah,
I'm excited, fresh
right.
faced, and you go in and then you look at some of the other L1s who have maybe years of experience and
Right.
they're like seasoned already,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
they and it's that's the thing where you feel like you don't know enough because of they're ahead of you, and
Mhm.
it's very common for us to feel that, if whether it's in cyber or anywhere else in any
Absolutely.
other space. And so um understanding how to navigate that is a tough part. And so you brought up a good perspective on this, because if you just have to consider the fact that you're still a beginner.
Right.
You're always going to be a beginner, no matter how many years of experience you have. You have CISOs with 20 years of experience who
Experience.
don't know what malware analysis is.
Yeah,
You know,
absolutely, absolutely. And it's all on the all about the mindset, right? And it's something that I'm still, dealing with in terms of how to really get into the mindset of approaching things as if they were new, as if, they were fresh, and trying to develop different perspectives. Because the nature of my work as, a SOC analyst, a cybersecurity analyst, we deal with alerts and deal with this type of alert fatigue. Essentially, we deal with alerts of similar natures, a lot of false positives on a regular basis. So if you don't keep things fresh in terms of how you're approaching and viewing the challenges you're facing, there's a good chance you're going to be left out, and you're not going to provide value eventually.
Mm-hmm. That is a tough part. I think I want to dig deep into that as well about your experience as a SOC analyst.
Yeah.
Right. So
Yes.
you're an L2, right?
Yeah.
How long have you been an L2 for?
For about 1.5 or so years right now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice. So what are some of the key factors that differentiate an L1 from an L2 from your experience, not from a role's experience or a job description you see on LinkedIn?
Yeah, give me a second. Let me just find a good JD. I think a good area in which you can see a difference between an L1 and an L2 is the way they communicate. An L1 will try to keep things as simple as possible, not get into too much of the details. They won't be too keen to try and communicate to others as much. At least this is how my experience has gone. As an L2, and this is my personal experience on it has been, as an L1, I would just give straight-laced answers. Oh, this is your question. Well, this is the answer. I'm not going to risk going in too deep and get lost and confused. As I gained more experience, I've been able to take those leaps into the unknown and make certain guesses, educated guesses, of course. And I think that's the difference I see in terms of an L1 or an L2 analyst. It's just the willingness to take the extra step forward, whether it is in terms of communication, in terms of your analysis, in terms of how you're communicating to your team members.
Yeah, it doesn't matter what level of competence you're at. The tough part isn't technical stuff; it's communicating.
The communication
stuff, right?
Yeah.
That's something I try and it took me a while to figure out as well.
Same here.
It's a matter of time and time experience, but what I find helps a lot as well, especially for L1s, and this is something I'm a big advocate for, is lightning talks. Right, just like we're doing now, we're talking about our experiences. This is a new format, but you want to put yourself in the position where your communication is tested. So lightning talks is a fantastic way. It's a very safe and quick and easy way. You don't feel the pressure of going to a 500-person conference and presenting what SQL injection is. Right. You're doing it to your team, and this is something I really like to see SOC managers do, or SOC teams, IR teams, whoever else, is if they're seeing a problem in like communication within their team, whether there's not enough information being shared, maybe they're quite timid, maybe there's some kind of cliques being formed. You want to kind of abolish that. Right?
Yeah.
And a lot of the time, all of these little nuances and annoying things will get abolished when they start speaking up.
As you communicate.
Exactly. You should task someone to say, give me something you learned about last week. This week I want you to read up on this new
this concept, and
yeah.
Talk about it. That's it. Talk
Exactly.
about what you figured, what you think, your opinions on it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think communication is key, and this is irrespective of the industry we're in any industry, communication, and it's it's core to who we are as human beings. It's just communication.
Yeah. It's tough for IT guys and tech people because we're like we can sometimes communicate better on the terminal than we can in front of humans.
I'm a chat god, dude. I can chat. My fingers move faster than my mouth at times.
Legit, yeah. My head goes. I have a direct connection to my fingers than my head than I do to my mouth.
Yeah, absolutely.
As an L2, what are some negative experiences you feel? Because a lot of the times when people are applying for jobs, the job descriptions or the recruiters or whoever, they'll tell you a lot.
Yeah.
But I think it's important for a lot of people to come in prepared or at least knowledgeable to know what to expect, and part of that is understanding the bad side of things.
Mhm.
So, from your experience as an L2, what would you say are some of the negative things aside from shifts and alert fatigue?
Right. Um, that's a little bit of a tough one because I wouldn't talk about the negative experience in terms of an L2 or the perspective of an L2 alone, just in terms of how cybersecurity is being looked at from a business perspective. And I think that has a tinge and a shade of negativity to it, and that's what I'd like to focus on. I think, at least again, all of it is just from my experience, and my thoughts are
Of
based on
course.
those. Is that there is a lack of understanding and support, from the decision makers, from the executive level of many companies. I'm talking about companies with internal cybersecurity teams. Um, from a business perspective, cybersecurity is essentially a money drain. Over the years, maybe cybersecurity was not a big thing a decade ago,
Of
but
course.
today it's one of the most sought after, um, areas and fields, generally speaking. But when you bring it down to an organizational level, it still hasn't reached that level of interest or value, is my personal belief. I see many other departments in multiple organizations where you'd have an HR role or an admin role or any of the more business critical functions, right, like HR, and they would be highly sought after, highly valued. I don't see the same level of interest in cybersecurity roles, and that I believe is that shade of negativity that I'm talking about that people have. It's just a lens of negativity that people look at in terms of maybe IT, but from my experience, cybersecurity specifically. That yeah, we've got our network engineers, we've got our system engineers. They can take care of security on the side. Why do we need a specific cybersecurity engineer or a security engineer? You know, and many organizations, especially your SMEs, don't seem to value this. Obviously, as a business, there are other priorities, and I think cybersecurity has to be one of those.
Yeah. How would you then, based on what you said, how would you prevent this from happening? What could be done to improve the perspectives of people
Yeah,
in towards cybersecurity or cyber professionals in
yeah.
UAE?
Okay. So there's more so than prevention. It's about changing their perception, right? Because it's already something that's inbuilt in most people, right? It's just the culture is that, yeah, it's the IT guy,
Yeah.
it's the security guy. Yeah, they're just gonna do what they do, right? Like we don't care what they do. I think that has to change, and so that is going to take a large, broader effort from cybersecurity professionals in terms of ensuring accurate representation of the value we are providing to organizations. Um, it's a weird topic and a weird angle, but that's honestly what I think about in terms of negative experiences.
Mm.
Even and this is something I've experienced myself too, wherein we've gone to a company-wide event or function, and there are certain teams, certain departments that get the spotlight on them, and your security team, yeah, they're back in the corner over there.
Yeah, it's it's
So
a
yeah,
it's a funny perspective that
yeah,
because I've spoken to people who kind of like being in the shadows,
hmm
you know, and they sit there like they don't know what I've done, they don't know what I can do type of
right,
attitude.
right.
But then there's also those who also share the same sentiment as you that say I want more recognition because this isn't widely recognized, and
It
I'm kind of that nature as well.
yeah, it comes down to the the saying that the baby that cries gets fed. So it's like that. We do want the recognition for the efforts and the work that we put in, and this I'm talking about broadly, very very generally, right? Maybe in specific organizations the culture is different, the values are different, but generally speaking, this is my thought on
Mm.
on that is that yeah. it's the onus is on cybersecurity professionals to ensure that they're well represented in their organizations.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Nice, man. That was a good answer. So now I want to go back a little bit. We
Right.
spoke a little bit about some negative
Mhm.
perceptions
Right.
of cybersecurity. We want to talk a little bit about how we can improve that. I think it's important for listeners to understand that perspective.
Right.
This can happen.
Right.
It's not an advertising company. You're not going to be an advertising role, Yet we still look at it in a sense like, oh, I have to do all these certs. I have to do all this work. I still don't get
Absolutely.
valued enough.
Absolutely.
And like I want to talk to you a little about certifications,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah.
This is the ever long question of certification or no certification, right?
Right.
There's never a right or wrong answer,
Absolutely. Yeah.
but I want to talk specifically here in UAE, right? Because there are some countries that tend to, and this is more of a generalized comment, but some countries, the work environment doesn't just doesn't just factor in the certifications, but also the skill level, which is
Absolutely.
ideal.
Ideal.
However, in UAE, it's not common.
Right.
That's not common. There are some companies that do this, and it's it's amazing that they do this, But I think personally that it's still a bit behind.
Yeah, the reason I think this is the case as to why not too many companies are, doing a more comprehensive type of, process or selection process, and why many of them defer to just looking at a certification checklist is, um, I believe the UAE market in itself and the cybersecurity industry over here is a little more fast-paced. There's a lot of moving parts and a lot of vacancies and a lot of opportunities that open up in a day and are closed within the day. So, in the pace at which things are moving, uh, a lot of people find it more efficient to look at certain, certifications, a list of certifications. If you have these certifications that we're looking for, then we can talk about, the next steps. And if you don't, then, that's just tough luck. And
Mm.
that is the reality that I've seen in this industry too. Not in the entry level positions. In the entry level positions, there's still a little bit of flexibility because I think the understanding is that you may not have all the certifications that would be required or expected rather. Um, but from your mid to senior level onwards, there is a whole jargon of certifications that I think are must-haves in this market. And the reason for that again is also that you have people coming in from all over the world applying for these jobs. Right, cybersecurity is not region specific, right? It's a global type of career, right? You could be sitting here and doing your cybersecurity work for any other country, across the world, and that's what it is essentially, and that's where the challenge lies, because when you're dealing with multiple people coming in from various different cultures, work ethics, etc., and they're all applying for this one position or this one job posting, the best way from the perspective of your HR, your talent acquisition team, or whoever is really like thinning out the herd, they can only refer back to a certification checklist. And so that's why the trend has become every job posting has a whole list of certificates that are nice to haves or must haves. And if you don't have that, you are effectively applying with a handicap. That's the honest way to put it. Um, in terms of what certifications are valued the most, it really depends on which role
Of course, yeah,
specifically.
yeah,
But that there are there are many that are well known and well appreciated globally, and those are the expectations over here in this market. And I think that just goes to show the level of competitiveness in this market and in this industry that I've seen job postings for L1s, and they require a CISA plus or a CISSP even, and
it's
I
insane.
just
It's
scratched my head.
insane.
I'm
Yeah,
just like, okay, cool,
yeah.
and I don't know if it was just a copy paste from the HR side or if they genuinely know that this is the certification we want from this individual.
Mm-hmm.
Now, me personally, I think it's a mix of certifications that really have value and really drive growth individually, um, as well as your personal experience and who you are as an individual. I think those are bigger factors than just a certification. A certification at the end of the day is just to certify, is just
Yeah.
tell the world that, hey, I'm capable of this.
100%. It's people will go into this industry thinking if I get this certification, I'm going to get that 200K a
Right.
year dollar job,
It's never the
and
case.
it's never the case.
Yes,
And
yes.
you make a very valid point, right? The certifications only validate the knowledge, and it has to be coupled with your personal profile. It has to be
Absolutely.
coupled with technical and communication skills
Absolutely.
that you
The
can
soft
demonstrate.
skills
The
that
soft
matter,
skills.
because in any industry, and especially in the cybersecurity industry, communication and those soft skills matter. It's not a one-man show. It's never a one-man show.
Yeah.
So there has to be a certain factoring into how well this individual will work within our team or within our organization. It's not just that, oh, he holds the CISSP, that's it, that's all we need.
Mm.
On some level, I can understand that that's the need, but there's so much more to it. And I believe like that's the gap that we're all feeling as professionals in this
Yeah.
industry, that
Yeah.
it's too one-dimensional in certain ways when you're just looking at it in terms of a certificate checklist.
Yeah, honestly, it's I tell a lot of new grads or new students this as well. Like, you will really bolster yourself in this industry if you have those types of abilities,
Hmm.
not just the certifications.
Right.
It's a bit of a
Yeah.
personal battle for a lot of people because, especially if you're trying to get into a technical space,
Mhm.
whether it's L1 or pen testing or anything,
Yep.
these are the actual checklists. I would say
Right.
is get your certs, get good at communicating your thoughts and your skills, and also find a way into the job application. What I mean by that is LinkedIn easy apply is not going to get you anywhere.
No,
It's not
not
going to
at
get
all.
anyone anywhere. It's
No.
just a silly little feature
Yeah.
that the company can rack numbers in and
It's
use for days.
it's an illusion. It's an illusion. It's just to trick yourself to into believing that, yeah, I've done my part.
Yeah,
But no, no, you haven't,
you really
because
haven't. There's a
um
lot more involved. You have
yeah,
to message the recruiters or
yeah,
try to find a way in,
yeah,
talk to the hiring managers, or just be ruthless in that
ruthless about
sense.
it. And LinkedIn, while it was very useful, I think pre-COVID, in terms of genuinely applying for jobs, having a genuine level of competition, and a fair application process altogether. In today's world, in 2025, it is insufficient.
Yeah.
And the easy apply button, it's just a trick. Don't
Yeah.
fall for the trick. Yeah.
LinkedIn is something I want to speak to
Yeah.
you about as well because it's drastically different back during
Hmm.
COVID.
Hmm.
2020,
Yes.
2019.
Yep.
It was, even before that, it was simply just like a online resume, if you will,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
You can connect with your peers or whatnot. But as the times have changed, LinkedIn has changed as well, right? And a lot of the people's approach to LinkedIn has changed. The benefit of LinkedIn so far I've seen, and like you can see from the posts nowadays as well, is the
Right.
fact that because you have these types of connections, right? An L1 analyst can directly connect with a director of some sort.
Absolutely.
It's a very vague example,
Hmm.
but that type of connection allows them to communicate with them quicker than having to go through
Absolutely.
separate channels or whatnot. And
Absolutely.
whether or not something comes of that is not the issue,
Yeah.
right? That direct connection is what people are seeing LinkedIn's value for.
Yeah.
And if I'm sharing my knowledge on LinkedIn, if I'm sharing blogs and things, someone will see it.
Yep.
Someone will see the fact that I wrote a blog
You
post
put
about
in
how
the
to.
effort.
Yeah,
I
because
I think the effort matters, and that is where, like you mentioned, to directly connect to a senior level executive, it takes effort. And so with LinkedIn, I believe it's become a showcase for your effort, and the effort that each individual, each professional puts into either their craft or their networking. But it all boils down to the effort and where you're really driving your efforts. I'm pretty sure, like on my LinkedIn, I've probably connected with a bunch of CISOs as well, but I actually haven't messaged a single one of them, and that's
Yeah.
due to lack of effort, right? And I think also not only a lack of effort for many of the newer people that are entering, their careers, their professional careers, right? Fresh graduates, they are also trying to come to terms with how to use LinkedIn more effectively. And I think that's a whole topic for another day,
Man, yeah.
because LinkedIn is as deep as an ocean.
Oh
And
man,
yeah,
it's insane.
yeah.
That's definitely something I'm trying to build as well
Hmm.
on LinkedIn. Is that
Hmm.
you got to build a brand now.
You
A lot
got
of these cyber
self-branding.
guys are pushing this, and it is working for a lot of
It
folks.
is working because it's kind of what lets you stand out from the rest. To have that spotlight on you is critical.
Yeah.
And not only on an individual level, I'm going to connect this back to what I mean in terms of the value of our teams. Cybersecurity teams require that spotlight on them as well.
Yeah,
It is
look at
important.
Microsoft and Google,
Yeah.
right? Microsoft Dart
Yeah.
or DART.
DART, yeah.
They have a reputation,
Yep.
right?
They start out in terms of showing their value and the
Yeah,
efforts that they're putting in
yeah.
terms of how they're contributing to the industry,
It makes people want to join. Not
Yes.
just to not ignore the fact that it's Google
That
or
they're a fact.
Microsoft.
Yeah, yeah.
It's more than just a team. They have a reputation of how they work. They know what they're doing. They have this standard of work quality
Yep,
and expectation.
exactly. Exactly.
That's the kind of
And
a goal.
I think this is something that we can imbue in our cybersecurity organizations and our teams and our people is just, uh, an added conscious effort into branding, into, saying that this is who we are, this is what we do, and
Yeah.
yeah, I think that has value.
I'm gonna start seeing you post on LinkedIn now,
Yo,
right?
I've been thinking about it for years at this point.
Dude.
And I have the issue with me, right, Nick, is it's just a matter of consistency, man.
Yeah.
And I have these grand ideas in terms of, okay, how I want to approach it, how we can execute it. And if if I could direct someone to doing this, I'm pretty sure they'd be super successful. But me doing it for myself, I seem to hit a roadblock there, and I'm still trying to figure it out. Like I'm slowly deciphering it and trying to figure out, how I can better myself. Because again, a lot up here, but not so much that I'm really putting into action.
Yeah.
And
Yo, you and
there's a
me are
disconnect there, dude.
you
Yeah.
and me are one and the same, man. Honestly, it's a
Yes,
tough
sir.
thing. It's
Yeah,
very tough, and I think having those systems in place will help.
absolutely.
And
Yeah.
so, yeah, once you see me post, I'll start seeing you post.
Yo,
It'll be a collaborative
you've
effort.
already inspired me. Yo, I think I've gone through your blog posts.
Oh, thanks.
One or two of them. I forgot the title, but I remember I spent one whole night just scrolling through your
Nice.
blog post. I was like, yo,
Cheers, man.
this is very nice, dude. Very nice to see the effort, right? The content's wonderful. I can see the effort in terms of, what you're doing and what you're trying to do. And I think, like I said, that um, eventually demands a lot of respect, a lot of recognition. And you can see that on LinkedIn as well, wherein, you put in the right efforts and direct the efforts the right way into certain posts, into certain discussions that you ignite, and there is recognition in that.
Mm.
Yeah,
Yeah, man. Definitely. I want to pivot a little bit away from
absolutely.
cyber right now. I want
Yeah,
to talk to you about now, Chris. As we mentioned earlier, cyber is a
yeah.
very passion-driven path for a lot of people.
Mhm.
It's also a monetary path. They see TikTok videos, they see
Right.
YouTube videos. They can make this much money doing this, that, and the other,
Yep, yep.
and that drives people to start. And you clearly demonstrated at the start that you had a calling, you had an inkling at uni. You started comp
Yeah.
sci, and you said, "Screw that! I want to go
Right.
into cyber. This is
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah.
I want the word threat
It
analyst in my
is
title. I want to
it's
be
the
instant
curiosity that
Yeah,
drives us.
yeah,
That's honestly what I believe, more so than, passion. Driving people into this industry is the curiosity, and it's how you not only sustain that curiosity through the years of your career, but develop that and increase that. That's what really drives the success of an individual or professional in this industry. Is my honest opinion. Curiosity is like the driving force, the engine of your vehicle in this industry. The second your curiosity dies out and you're like, I've learned enough, I know enough, the chip on your shoulder, that's it, man. That's the downfall right there. Yeah.
So curiosity is often quite it's either, you cultivate it
Hmm.
or it's baked into you,
Hmm.
right? And either way, it's not just for a particular path. It's not, oh, I have to be curious for cyber. Like this is a
Right,
skill set.
right.
It's a human trait.
Yes,
You'll often see that come out in other habits, right? Or
yes,
other things you do in your life.
right.
What other things are you curious about? When it comes to outside of cyber, what
Right.
drives you to learn something new because you're curious about it, or what is that thing for you?
For me, it's if there was something that interested me, I would try to dig in deeper with no second questions, no inhibitions, no second thoughts to it. And this is what has driven me, throughout my life and continues to drive me. Let's say, and recently I've gotten into nutrition and, healthy eating habits.
Nice.
I've been trying to take a deeper look into, eating healthier and being a little more mindful about my overall health. And I dug deep. I went in as deep as I could. I learned about, intermittent fasting, about different diets, what they do, the whole idea of what macros are, micros are, and it's not going to make me money. To put it simply, I'm not earning from the knowledge I'm gaining over here, and I think that is what defines curiosity. Is you don't have to get paid to learn it. If you're learning it for the sake of learning it, for the sake of your own interest, that's good enough. And if you have that innate, nature within you, or you develop that, which I've seen a lot of individuals, capable of doing that too, that's just as good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Damn, man, getting me inspired now, man.
I'm
That's
glad. Okay.
cultivating it is hard. It
Yes,
is hard because
absolutely.
it takes a little level of effort to think
Yes.
why
Why?
why should I do this, right? Because it'll always happen. Why
Yes.
should I go down this
Yep.
path of
Yep.
learning about how to build an Arduino board to do this one thing, right? It's less about what it means to you, but if you're in that position of what to do next, you
Right.
simply just go.
Go ahead.
Our advice is
Yeah.
just go headfirst into something.
Introspection in the beginning is important, like you mentioned. Why am I doing this? What is the purpose? What's really driving me to want to do more, right? And I truly believe you can't force people to do anything. It has to come from within them, and then only, it's going to be something fruitful. Otherwise, it's just a half-baked effort, right? And so curiosity is one of those things that's developed, within themselves, and it's not some, and sure, you can inspire others, but you can't make people curious. That's something they become curious
Yeah,
based on what they see, what they hear, what they
yeah,
feel, and again, I don't have it figured it out yet. I'm still trying to work it out myself, but I've truly found that the individuals that are most curious, right? Um, they're the ones that tend to see good growth in this industry.
yeah. That's I personally have had that kind of experience as
Mhm.
well. I even though I had this initial drive to study cyber, when I was studying it, it was tough. It was really tough for me because I couldn't figure out what I wanted to do. Or do I want to go down red teaming? Do I want to be a pen tester? Or do I want to be a SOC analyst? Because
Mhm.
this is the way you should start. This is what everyone says, right?
Right, yeah.
And so somehow I ended up as a content engineer at Immersive Labs
That's
making labs,
amazing, dude.
which was
Yeah.
great, right?
Yeah.
It was a fantastic experience, and the people I worked with, and you know, my managers as well, they really supported the growth of the team to the level that it provided insight for me,
Mhm.
right? Me as trying to develop what I wanted to do. I only had that experience and my university degree,
Mhm.
and I'd always ask questions like, "Oh, what do you do next? What should I do? Should I go back and do Hack the Box, or should I
Right.
do Try Me?"
Mhm.
So I tried them. I went,
Yep.
okay, let me try these
Try
things.
the.
Let me spend a couple months doing some Hack the Box
Yep.
machines,
See how
and
they
it
feel.
and it and it just didn't click. I
Yeah.
just couldn't get on board with it. And then I did a little bit of malware analysis one day. My colleague at the time, Ben McCarthy, who's a absolute like reverse engineer wizard. Um, he like bleeds Windows, honestly. He gave me a bit of a lowdown on like what to do when you have like a malicious executable, what to do what to look for when you're in DNS spy. It was so overwhelming, but
Overwhelming,
it's
yeah.
so exciting. So let me jump into this. That kind of fueled the drive to get a job as a SOC analyst because that curiosity of, you know what, this is kind of my thing. You
Hmm.
know, let me follow that path. And
Hmm.
so I did. I became an L1. I
Yeah.
went on to becoming an L2, did some
Hmm.
customer stuff, and then through that I pivoted back into cyber education.
Education.
Um, and I got to the point where I'm like, you know what else can I do? Because I'm
Right.
also a musician, right?
Right.
So that's why I thought about this podcast. I thought I talk to a lot of people. Everyone
Yeah.
has all these unique stories.
Yeah.
I like sharing stories with people, and so I want to showcase that. Then that's how I kind of
Again,
through that I
amazing
learned.
effort
Yeah,
from your end, Nick. Yo,
thank you, man.
I think that was I've told you this before that yeah that there was a huge gap in this area where I think that there's a shadow on the cybersecurity industry as a whole, and you know with your efforts with this podcast and with what you're doing, I think you're going to shine a nice ray of light through
Thank
it,
you, man.
and that's going to help multitudes of people. And the pivot, from dealing with immersive labs and being into content creation all the way into SOC analysis and then into the cyber educator field that you're in right now. I think that's amazing, dude. And kudos on the pivots.
I appreciate it. Man. It was
Yeah,
tough. It was
yeah,
tough work.
yeah. Because for me, on my end, my personal experience has been, yeah, I got into SOC analysis because that was the opportunity in the market at the time. When I was looking out for a job, and they said, yeah, we need SOC analysts, but most of my education revolved around digital forensics. Like I played around with the tools and
Mm, mm,
learned what a chain of custody is. What are the legal implications of not having a chain of custody? How to perform as an expert witness. These are things I learned during the course of my education, but unfortunately, I was never able to really put it into practice because the need at the time was. From an employer perspective, is they needed SOC analysts. They didn't care about anything else. And on my end, I needed a job. I didn't care about anything else.
yeah.
And so, we kind of shook hands on that. And I started my career as a SOC analyst, and I've enjoyed it. It's come with its own set of challenges, and a lot of learning throughout. And the exposure in terms of the tools, in terms of the situations, dealing with clients, whether they were happy at times and unhappy most of the time, managing them really helped me hone some of those soft skills that we spoke about, communication skills that are required. And yeah, a part of me also is looking forward to trying to pivot into different areas because cybersecurity, again, as you know, is it's filled with so many different types of roles. A person would be fortunate to be able to experience a variety of those,
What is
I
one
think.
of those things you're trying to do?
Uh, Honestly, I want to move more into the business side of cybersecurity. So that would require me, firstly, to get a more comprehensive look at how cybersecurity is being conducted as a business in not only in UAE but just globally. Actually, 2025 has been a journey more in terms of where I've focused more on my health. But in the long run, my aim is to move more into the decision making seat of cybersecurity
Mm,
within our businesses. And so I'm just trying to figure out my own way eventually.
yeah.
Uh, we will see. We'll see where that leads. Yeah.
Nice, man. Chris, you said you're a gamer. What are you playing right now?
My go-to for more than a decade has been League of Legends. It's a MOBA, RTS MOBA. Yeah, it's kind of like Dota. Dota is even more popular.
Oh yeah.
Dota 2, yeah. So along the likes of that, I got hooked in. I think hooked into it the final year of high school.
Yeah.
Prior to that, I was hardcore into a lot of FPS like Call of Duty,
Ooh.
Counter Strike. Counter
Oh
Strike's been
man.
evergreen for me,
Oh
dude.
yeah.
I got
Oh yeah.
into Counter Strike when I was like in third grade. I was like maybe 7 or 8 years old, and got onto a PC, and then and I had no clue what LAN was, and then I knew I had to click this, join a custom game, and a person had already hosted a server and all of that. Click, click, and start shooting some heads, dude. It was fun.
Dude, it was yeah. I miss those FPS days.
Yeah.
It showcases like Modern Warfare 2 videos, like old guy, like smooth 360 no scopes and all that. Man, I miss that game so much. I put too many hours into it. When I moved to UAE for college, I had IT classes, and we had this huge IT room with
Right.
I think there was about 47 machines back to back. Like it was like they called it. It was like a two-room thing. So it was like
Right.
two rooms with, and this is no one knew about cyber. No one was doing any hacking or anything like that. So there was a shared file server for the network for the entire school on there, right? It's running Windows or something like that, and someone discovered this is how it operates, right? So someone's had the CS:GO or CS2
Right.
executable file,
Right.
right? So they just put it on the shared server,
Chat.
and then we had like a 2 hour lesson, and so we were all just getting bored. They're telling us about how to use Java and use Visual Basic and all that stuff. So some guy I'm look over and this guy's playing Counter Strike in the
Right.
lab, and I'm like, how
How? Yeah.
how the
How is he doing
fuck is he
that?
doing this? What the hell? So I do it,
Yeah.
and then that triggers a
Triggers
chain.
a chain reaction, and everybody's doing
Every single
single
machine in that room was running Counter Strike
strike.
for at least an hour and a half. It was fantastic, and this is like my first LAN party experience
Yeah.
with everyone. It was chaos. It was awesome.
Wonderful, wonderful. 2012, same scenario. Computer science lab. I was doing the same thing, dude. I think for us it was just a bunch of kids with USBs.
Oh,
So they just come for the computer science lab, and it'd be like a 2 hour lab. They'd pop in the USB. They'd put in Counter Strike 1.6, I think was the one, and one guy would host a server. Everybody else would join in because they were all on the same network, and that's it. LAN parties nonstop. And the teachers caught us
of
eventually because
course.
everybody's like glued into their screen,
Yeah.
and she's like, I'm not that interesting. Why are they, why are they looking at their screens?
Games aren't as good anymore.
No, no, it's been tougher and tougher for me to find multiplayer games. In terms of single player games, I've actually gotten into a lot of like card-based and turn-based games. So the nature the nature of the games I've playing have also kind of evolved
Yeah,
as I've grown
yeah.
up. And so initially it was a lot of action, FPS, beat 'em ups and fighter games, and then in between it was racers, and I got really into cars and
Nice.
and stuff. And then it was fantasy, with League of Legends, Dota, and now it's kind of like a mix of it all, but the nature of how we're playing the game kind of changes. For me, the very act of playing games has been instrumental in developing who I am. It's worked wonders for me. The gaming has taught me a lot about focus. Like the earliest memory I have is, it was like the PS1, and I was getting ready for school, and I'd be gaming, and my mom would be feeding me food like breakfast because I'd have my uniform on ready, and the only thing on my mind was gaming, and yeah, it was nostalgia that and I think everybody, for me it was gaming, but everybody has some activity or something that they've been doing their entire lives that really translates well into the work that they're doing,
Yeah,
and
yeah, yeah. For
and
me, it's the same. Like,
yeah.
it actually the opposite way around. Like, when I got better at cybersecurity and the work that I do, whether it's communicating with trainees, explaining concepts, difficult concepts in a more digestible manner, not just trainees, but like managers, directors, having these, presentation meetings, I have to be concise. That translated really well in my music life when it came to like jamming with other musicians
Right.
or like conveying my thoughts clearly. I can't just be like,
Yeah.
hey, make that bass tone a bit more scrongly. Like, no one's going to understand that.
Right.
And doing my work helped translate it nicely into my music.
Yeah. No, absolutely. So I think everybody has that. Everybody has some skill or the other that they've developed or honed in some way or the other. that may seem unrelated, but they're all interconnected. And
Yeah.
it's all about making those connections and transferring those skills from one particular purpose and where you've used it within one context, and recontextualizing the activity or the skill.
I have
Yeah,
one more question for you,
sure.
Chris. Do you have anything you want to showcase? Any ideas, any blogs, any businesses, releases, code, or just you want to scream at me a little bit before we sign things off?
And I don't really have too much yet. A lot to showcase, in the sense that a lot of things that are interesting. I recently, and again, most of my life either revolves around family or gaming, or my work, and now health has become a priority recently. And so um, yeah, there's just been a lot, and I'd love to go on and on talking about this. It's been super fun, honestly, Nick. But yeah, the one thing I'd like to say is props to you, Nick. It's been amazing. The conversations we've had have always been wonderful. Always feel like I've left the conversation very satisfied. You're a
Thank you, man.
great listener. You're a great conversationalist, and we've always had a good time with our
Yeah,
discussions.
man.
I truly appreciate that. Yeah.
Honestly, yeah, it's I'm always excited talking to you. Like you have
Yeah.
so much value to bring, and it's
I'm
just it's
glad.
a nice chat as
Yeah,
well. I
it's a
mean,
nice
you
chat, dude.
just don't get that these
Yeah.
days. So it's
Word,
I'm glad
word.
you're saying that. I appreciate it, man. It means a lot.
Thank- Great, great, great,
Thank you
great.
so much for joining. You've
Yeah,
been
no.
absolutely
It's
an
been my pleasure,
amazing
bro.
guest.
It's been my
Amazing
pleasure.
guest.
I love it.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of CyBytes. I really hope you enjoyed it. If you want to reach out, talk about cyber, talk shop, or if you just want to drop me some feedback, you can do so via LinkedIn. You can find my details in the show notes. Thanks.